Привет всем, с вами я, Janey, и это How Janey Learned Russian. We return back to our videos on all the different cases based on my textbook that I wrote. Last week we did verbs, which was a fun break, and everybody got a feel for those verbs in celebration of my new textbook on verbs that's for sale. But now we go back to all the videos and all the work on the cases, which is just that thing, that hump that you got to get over when you're learning Russian. So today we are talking about genitive case, genitive singular. I've actually kind of separated those out. We'll be doing we do genitive singular first, and then we get to genitive plural. In fact, that's the last chapter in the book because genitive plural is quite the headache. So this will just ease us into genitive case a little bit. So today we're talking about this phenomenon called the 2-3-4 phenomenon, which makes us need genitive singular. So we'll be talking all about that today. I remember I've warned you that numbers are kind of tricky and annoying in Russian, and I'm always like, don't tell me how many of that you have, because then it gets all complicated. So when we're first doing that nominative case and I'm like, describe your home, describe your room, don't tell me numbers, right? Because it starts to need genitive singular or genitive plural, and it's a lot to keep track of. But don't worry, in today's video we'll start walking through that little by little in a not overwhelming way. So just a reminder, this is all based on my textbook on the cases called Russian Cases Made Slightly Less Scary. I just finished my book on verbs called Russian Verbs Made Logical and Slightly Less Scary, and that's also available over on Patreon. And I currently, in celebration of that new textbook on verbs, I currently have a promo code going, and you can actually use it on the cases textbook as well, and that promo code is I love verbs. Okay, even if you don't love verbs, at least just type in that promo code and get 20% off the book on cases. That's available over on my Patreon. There's a link in the description down below. So today, because we're talking about 2-3-4, we're going to be talking about the painter of a very famous and beloved painting. It's technically an icon, but it is based on this person, Andrei Rublov. Okay, so это наш интересный кусочек информации дня. And notice, like right here, I've been showing you all unit long when we've been talking about genitive case. I've been giving you a little preview on how these 2-3-4 numbers do something kind of weird. Look what happens here. Три интересных факта. Oh my goodness. Did you even realize that was happening? So look at all this genitive case happening here. Три интересных факта из жизни Андрея Рублева. Да, Andrei Rublov. Okay, so Andrei Rublov was, in English we'd say a painter, but in Russian, you can't call them a painter. I'll talk about that here in just a minute. We don't know a ton of details about him because he lived so long ago, but they think he was born approximately in 1360 and died approximately 1428. So he kind of wandered around the Moscow Golden Ring area doing painting. So there is a fabulous, fabulous movie from one of my most favorite Russian directors, sure enough, called Andrei Rublov. I highly recommend it. It is, not only is it just artistically stunning, it's just beautiful. It's from Tarkovsky, and just you wait, we're going to actually talk about Tarkovsky завтра. So it's in black and white, and there's a moment of color used very strategically in the movie. So I'm going to leave it as a cliffhanger. It's very beautiful. It's really beautiful depiction of the time under the rule of the Mongol Tatars. So that's kind of a part of Russian history that went on for 200 plus years that a lot of people just skip over. They don't really realize how much that shaped the Russian mentality. Was when the Russian people had these overlords, the Mongols. So he's done kind of these frescoes. I believe this is a church in Vladimir. He is responsible for this ceiling here. And then in a lot of the art museums, specifically in the Tretyakovskaya Galeria, you can see some of his most famous paintings. These are them. And I swear, I also saw these in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I can't remember at what point I would have seen it. But so what I want to point out here is, remember I told you can't really call him a painter. In Russian, an icon if you're painting icons, you're actually writing icons. So iconopisец, he's a iconopisец because he writes the icons, because God just sends that information to you about how to write the icon. So you are merely a conduit for God telling you how he wants these icons to look. So notice, and then the icon itself is not like a painting, it's at the iconopis, right? So it's like, again, there's like a spiritual element to it. So his most famous painting, and you've probably seen this before and probably didn't realize it was from this guy, Andrei Rublov. It's this famous one called the Troitsa, Triangela. There's a preview of our 2, 3, 4. Triangela. So these three angels are sitting there, faith, hope, and charity, right? So Вера, надежда, милосердие, or some people say Любовь as well, is one of the angels. So those are the три ангела, Троица, also known as like the Троица, the three of them. So anyway, I highly recommend that movie. Andrei Rublov is it's just so beautiful. Anyway, I highly recommend it. And again, for those of you who don't know a lot about Russian icons, definitely look into it because it's a whole art form in and of itself. Вот. Okay, so the 2, 3, 4 rule. Let's get into it. Let's look at some memes here to kind of see it coming to life. Вот. 2 года у власти, right? So if you've been saying your years, you have definitely been accidentally coming in contact with this 2, 3, 4 concept. And I'll give you a little anecdote from my own life here in just a moment. So, 2 года у власти. This little baby has been 2 years in power. He's been at the head of the household. That's right. That's the joke here. And then here's another one. Есть 2 типа людей в декабре. Да? So notice here, 2 типа. So that tells us the original of type. So there's 2 types of people in December. The original of type was a masculine. So tip, вот. And 2 типа, start noticing how we're getting genitive singular here, genitive singular. Now, when we get to the feminines, there's not going to be a huge difference. You're not going to notice it because remember, genitive singular plural for feminines is essentially the same as nominative plural. So, but yeah, so вот, я такой тип, кстати. Я люблю Рождество. Okay. Еще. Oh, so the other place where you've been seeing the 2, 3, 4 rule, not noticing it, is when we talk about time. В 2 часа, 3 часа, 4 часа, and then suddenly 5 часов. And so a lot of time my students are like, well, why did you just correct me? Didn't I say часов? And I'm like, well, technically it's right here, it's часа. Anyway, so here's the meme. 4 часа сна. 8 часов сна. That's me right now. This is my life. Like I cannot snap out of this constant feeling of fatigue. How about this one? Месяц отношения versus 3 года отношения. So you've got Greece versus Pulp Fiction there. So 3 года отношения. So let's talk about this. Let's break this down on rules. And this actually, I pulled this from my unit on dative case because that's where we really start talking about age. But these numbers come up here in genitive case. So the anecdote I was going to tell you is I was in Russia essentially from 19 to 22, not like the whole way through, but I was at Russia at different time periods in those years. And I remember being so confused because when I first got there, I was 19 лет. I'm like, okay, лет, that's how you say years old. 20 лет, I celebrated my 20th birthday, 20 лет, okay, cool. Now suddenly I'm 21, and when I go to say 21 лет, they're like, нет, 21 год. And then I'm like, oh, I'm going to be 22 in the fall, and I'm like, okay, I'm 22 год. And they're like, no, 22 года. Oh my gosh. So is it different for every single number? I was like, why is this so complicated? There's a whole separate thing. So let's look at the chart here. Any number that ends in 1, except for the teens, except for 11, right? It's going to just get nominative singular, right? So that's why at one point in my time in Russia, I was 21 год. 2, 3, 4, whether it's years, hours, and any number ending in 2, 3, 4. So you could be like, for example, I'm back to a года now because I'm 42 года, right? So whereas last year I was 41 год, So you gotta, if you're gonna keep getting older, you gotta learn these rules. And then 5 and above, as well as 0 or anything ending in 0, we're gonna get the genitive plural, which we'll go into more detail. But you're already saying the genitive plural when you say часов. And then interestingly, лет is genitive plural of summers. It's genitive plural of summers. You may not have ever realized that. You're actually technically saying how many summers you are when you say how old you are in Russian. So here we see the 2, 3, 4 rule. This is probably where we first get introduced to it, is when we're trying to talk about age. 2, 3, 4 gets genitive singular, ending in 1 gets nominative singular, and then 5 and above, or anything that ends in a 0, gets genitive plural. Okay, so we're not going to talk about genitive plural just yet. Don't you worry. Another thing to keep in mind here is that numbers, in fact, I'm working on this with a student right now. She just hesitates anytime she has to say the number 2 because she's aware that there exists different versions. So let's talk about what are those different versions. Numbers get gender as well. Well, only certain numbers. So один is for a masculine, одно describing a neuter, одна describing a feminine, and одни for permaplurals, things that are always plural, like maybe you only have one pair of jeans. I love in the comments when people criticize my Russian, like, oh, you didn't put the right word stress. And I'm like, do you pay attention to all the mistakes I make in English too? Because I say the weirdest stuff in English because I'm like under pressure on camera. So please go ahead and correct my English in the comments while you're at it. Anyway, so yeah. So maybe you only have one pair of jeans. Одни джинсы, да? У меня одни джинсы. I just have these jeans. Вот. So if I were to describe my family here, I would say у меня один брат и две сестры. Две сестры, not две сестры. I hear that all the time. Сестры is nominative plural. And we have a 2, 3, 4 rule happening here. So we get a genitive singular, okay? У меня две сестры и один брат. Вот. Дальше. Это мои дети, да? То есть, например, у меня 2 сына. Сын is masculine, so I can just use good old-fashioned 2. И 2 дочери, okay? Дочь is going to get a really irregular genitive singular. And then у моего мужа тоже есть 2 сына. Да, то есть в этом доме иногда бывает 6 детей. 6 детей. Вот. Дальше. Okay, so now if we were going to apply the 2, 3, 4 rule to describing a room, okay? How would we do that? So if you want to say, I see... По-русски, я вижу, например, шкаф. How would you say one шкаф? Вот это шкаф, кстати. We don't really do these in the United States. In fact, I don't even know what they would be called in the United States. Somebody can tell me in the comments. See, I screw up in English too, everybody. I screw up in all the languages because that's just what my brain is right now. So I don't know how to say шкаф in English, but я вижу один шкаф, да, один большой шкаф, okay? Next, сколько диванов есть в этой комнате? Как вы думаете? Я вижу, okay, so диван is a masculine, so we're going to just say good old-fashioned 2, and then what needs to happen to диван? It needs to get genitive singular. Я вижу 2 дивана. Вот. Следующий, стул, another masculine. Сколько стульев? Здесь, в этой комнате, 2 стула. 2 стула. Not to be confused with стулья, which is the plural, which is the nominative plural, and it's an irregular plural. Next, стол. Вы видите стол? Да, я вижу один стол. Это может быть столик, маленький стол, но я вижу один стол. Вот. Дальше. Ковер. Русские любят ковры. Они очень любят ковры. Окей. Сколько ковров вы видите? Сколько? Я вижу. Okay. And this your is a fleeting vowel, so it's going to go to ковра in the genitive. Я вижу 3 ковра. Видите? Здесь большой ковер висит на стене. Здесь большой ковер лежит на полу. И еще один маленький ковер лежит на ковре. Man, they love those rugs. Okay, дальше. Картина. Картина. So painting. Сколько картин вы видите? Да, сколько картин вы видите? Я вижу, ну, здесь один висит в коридоре. О, кстати, это Васнецов. Да, окей. Я вижу в этой комнате 3, and then картины is just going to sound like the nominative plural, because that's how the genitive singular feminine is. It sounds exactly like the nominative plural. So, я вижу 3 картины. Вот так. Вот так. Okay, дальше. So, let's review this concept, okay? So, 2, 3, 4 gets genitive singular. With masculines, that typically means an a of some sort, an a or a ya on the end. With feminines, hardly any change, but be careful on those people words, because people words tend to be irregular, like daughters and sisters tends to be irregular. And then also remember that the number 1 gets gender, один, одно, одна, одни, as well as два has 2 versions. Два for masculines and neuters, две for feminines. Okay, хорошо. Вот. I have 2 brothers. How would you say that? У меня 2 брата. Okay, what if we wanted to insert here an adjective? Do you remember what would happen? Do you remember back when I pointed out when we were talking about 3 interesting facts? Should we try it out? It's going to actually get the genitive plural on the adjective. So let's try. У меня 2 старших брата. That's why this is so confusing, is the adjective gets genitive plural, but the noun gets genitive singular, right? Okay, I have 2 sisters. У меня 2 сестры, not сестры, not сестры. Сестры is nominative plural, okay? Вот, we have 1 car, okay? Car is feminine, so 1 also needs to be feminine. У нас одна машина. Вот. There are 4 chairs in the room. Стул. So, thank goodness we don't have to do that irregular plural, right? Because chairs has an irregular plural. We just go, есть 4 стула в комнате. Да? Есть 4 стула в комнате. Вот. How about this one? Janey has 2 sons and 2 daughters. Sons, thank goodness, in the genitive singular is not irregular. However, daughters is. Okay? And then let's also change up the 2s for the gender of each. Are we ready? У Janey. Notice my name doesn't change in any of the cases, кстати. У Janey 2 сына и 2 дочери. И 2 пасына. Да? Вот. Хорошо. So this is a really great practice. If you really want to get some really good practice with this 2, 3, 4 concept, go through, describe your family. I have 2 of this. I have 3 of this. And then if you want to be fancy, you can tell me their names. Ему 50 лет. Ему 31 год. Ей 25 лет. Мне 41 или 41 год. So again, now that this is on your radar, you're going to start noticing this 2, 3, 4 rule a little bit more. Хорошо, это все на сегодня. Увидимся на следующем уроке. Пока-пока.